We had a lot of down trees right in here. You can see I've cut them back just enough to get through. I found two young people down here on a couple of years ago with four-wheelers running all over the place, knocking trees down, and I discouraged them strongly. There was also a group building fires here, because there used to be a fire pit. And they were taking the bark off all of the birch trees, so I've cleaned this all up, and it's worked.
The shoreline of the legendary Saco River Indian Cellar Park stretches for about a mile along the Saco River in the Salmon Falls Village area of Hollis, a small southwestern Maine town founded in 1798. Indian Cellar is located just below the Salmon Falls Bridge, directly across from Buxton's Pleasant Point Park. Salmon Falls Village was once a thriving center of industry and commerce. Lumber mills were built on the shores of the village, and log drivers took advantage of the swift-moving springtime water flow to transport logs down the river to lumber mills in Saco and Biddeford. The Saco River has a history of floods and freshets, and the wooden dams of the old days were no match for the river's power. At the end of the 19th century, large concrete dams were constructed along the river, and a new era of efficient power generation was underway. The demand for electric power in the Saco River Valley was growing, and so was the size of the dams. The Skelton Dam was constructed in 1948 and remains the largest dam on the Saco River, rising 74 feet above the downstream river. Today, the water flowing through Indian Cellar has been calmed by a series of dams, including the West Buxton, Bonnie Eagle, Moderation, and Bar Mills dams. But it was the Skelton Dam that changed the course of the river most dramatically. The dam has reliably generated power since 1948, but not without a cost to the natural environment. The Skelton Dam flooded the Salmon Falls Gorge, and the uniquely historic geological rock formation known as Indian Cellar was lost, perhaps forever.
And this is used to be a Salmon Falls Gorge. It's all flooded now. It's at the level of Skelton Dam. And this is the river section that runs into Skelton Pond, so about half a mile down. This had sat idle here just as a piece of wild land since '48, since they flooded this. It was a very popular spot before it was flooded. After it flooded, it just shut off like that. Nobody bothered to come out here much anymore.
The Saco River Indian Cellar takes its name from the deep, sheltered bedrock walls of the granite gorge that once dominated the landscape in this historic area of Hollis. This section of the gorge stayed cool in the warm summer months, and migratory Native Americans were said to have stored their food in small caves located at the base of the Indian Cellar crevasse. Before the Skelton Dam was constructed, Salmon Falls and the Indian Cellar were a sight to behold, especially in the springtime. The train that once ran from Portland, Maine to Rochester, New Hampshire, brought hundreds of sightseers and picnickers drawn to seasonal log drives, and the pounding of Class 4 and 5 water thundering its way through the gorge. A few hardy souls would even try their luck maneuvering canoes through the swift-moving water. The gorge was a spectacular natural phenomenon in all 4 seasons, and the Indian Cellar was at one time a popular destination spot in the summer. Some of the locals still remember the whitewater rapids that once tore through the gorge. Rita Anderson's first visit to the park was back in the late 1930s.
My earliest experiences of Indian Cellar is with my grandmother. My grandmother used to take us, my brother and I, down there for a picnic. We'd go down and we'd have a picnic lunch, and then we'd just sit there and enjoy the falls and just being outdoors and listen to the roar of the falls and of course saw maybe some logs on some of those big rocks that was there in the middle of the river.
Rita has lived and worked in Hollis all her life and has a great love for the woods and waters of Hollis. Anderson served as the town's conservation commissioner for over 25 relatively uneventful years. All that changed in 2007 when she learned about Maine Woodland Properties' plan to develop the Indian Cellar property into 12 house lots.
I was very concerned about it because that is, to me, that's pristine property down there.
Rita knew she'd need all the help she could get if the newly formed campaign to save Indian Cellar had any chance of success. So she enlisted the help of John Mador, an outdoorsman with a passion for conservation.
John Mador got very interested in the Conservation Commission in Hollis. So in talking with him, I said, I would like to get done as chairman. And I said, I'm willing to turn this right over to you.
The planning board had a application for a 12-unit subdivision down here. And we didn't even know what had happened, but it had been sold, this 58-acre parcel, to a Maine Woodlands Development or something like that corporation. They had it was divided up into a huge 12-unit subdivision, and with roads coming in and everything, and they were going to sell off high-price Saco River waterfront lots. Well, not only Hollis, but Buxton was up in arms about this. They were as concerned across the river as we were. They didn't want to look over here and see this all cut up into a subdivision. Well, lo and behold, we organized and got Trust for Public Land to tell us how to raise money and how to how to write grants and all that sort of thing.
The Trust for Public Land got involved in the Indian Cellar project in probably 2007. I remember reading an article in the Portland Press Herald after a planning board meeting where I think the developer who owned the property was an applicant to put in his subdivision. And my recollection is the paper recounted 80 plus or minus people coming to the planning board meeting and being surprised that the property had sold. Now it was being slated for subdivision. and they wanted to be part of that process. So I saw a couple of things in that article. One is the article talked about the emotion behind the property, the surprise that it was under development, the history of people had gone down to the shores to get to the river for generations, and now it was at risk of being lost. One of the questions we had to answer is, how are we going to pay for it? And in order to get there, we saw the Land for Maine's Future program on the horizon. That's a competitive grant process. We needed to look at the property and say, does it have conservation value? Absolutely. Does it have historical value? Yep. And does the community want to make it happen? Sure. And so LMF, Land for Maine's Future, was one of those funding opportunities, but we had to compete for it. That's not going to pay for the whole thing. One funding source in today's day and age does not get you there. So the town leadership was listening. They weren't making any commitments, but they were listening. And ultimately, the town contributed $250,000. That had to go to the voters. And the voters said yes. Thirdly, we went out and raised private dollars. And the community, Buxton, Hollis, and surrounding communities all stepped up. We put together the personalities and the team that went to the landowner and said, we would like to talk to you to see if you would consider selling the property to the Trust for Public Land and ultimately the town. And we negotiated for months and were able to get that opportunity. Then we had to raise, north of $800,000. And you're looking around saying, where are we going to find $800,000 in a very short period of time, relatively? And we raised enough private dollars to buy the land and to create an endowment, a stewardship endowment, to help take care of it.
Nearly $1 million was needed to buy the land from the developers. Against heavy odds and seemingly insurmountable obstacles, the campaign to save Indian Cellar was finally realized in 2009.
The opportunity to buy a piece of property comes once. Sometimes you get another bite at the apple, but you need to be thinking about, how do I protect that property and how do I take care of it? It was clear early in the project that the stewardship, the taking care, the getting involved was a key to success. Just buying it wasn't enough. What you want to make sure is that there's sort of a culture that builds around the protection effort that says, this is ours. We want people to be here, but we need to take care of it.
There's 1,000 glitches when you're trying to do something like this that keep stopping you in your tracks. What do we do? How do we go about acquiring this? Well, we had a gigantic fundraising thing to raise enough money, and indeed we succeeded. After we bought this, I've kind of grabbed the ball and as far as turning it in from just a piece of land into what I call a preserve, which is accessible. The state gave us a bunch of money from the Land for Maine's Future. We were obliged by promise to them, to the state, to not just leave this wild land, but to make it accessible to the public. And I've done everything in my power to live up to this obligation.
Hats off to John Mator. John is and was an incredible champion, a visionary for what this project could be and is turning into and how it is being enjoyed today. The key is to get people in behind him, get depth on the bench, to follow his lead, to learn from people like John, and embrace the property the way he has.
Indian Cellar is a remarkable success story for Maine's conservation community. The Indian Cellar Park is now protected from development forever, and visitors are once again returning to this uniquely historic nature preserve. Paul Rollins has been diving professionally and recreationally for years. He and a dive partner had read news stories about the park and decided to explore the property for themselves.
Nope. Yep. seen pictures of it before the dam was built, of somebody actually canoeing down here. I think they were nuts, but it was quite a spectacular gorge that you can see the remains of, but still above water. It goes down another 40 feet into a very much narrower channel coming down here. And that, in the springtime with the spring runoffs, it was just horrendous water. Beautiful, beautiful area. It still is, just different.
My dive buddy in the water with me today is Randy Richardson. I'm Paul Rollins. I have a boat tender, Mike Robinson, out there too. So we got all our safety stuff in place that we needed to for the dives. We took the video system, went down this rock ledge right in front of me here, down to about 40 feet, shooting the rock ledge, looking for the Indian Cellar. Then we hit a ledge and dropped straight down to 60 feet, looked around at the bottom at the 60-foot level.
The amber-colored water made visibility a little difficult. We would have been completely in the dark without lights, but the water is very clean, and I was surprised that there was almost no sign of human beings at all.
In terms of diving along rock ledges going down in fresh water, this one is somewhat similar to Fry's Leap up in Sebago Lake, where you have a lot of the rock ledge going straight down to quite a depth. Fry's Leap is about 105 feet straight down. Here, once you went off that little bit of a plateau, it was 60 feet straight down. Both of them are interesting spots. I would say this was probably more interesting because I was trying to look for what might be storage areas in the past.
For years, the park suffered from neglect and misuse. But today's visitors enjoy a network of well-maintained trails and a diverse, biologically rich shoreline habitat. As awareness of the park grows, the Indian Cellar Salmon Falls region is poised to undergo another historic period of change. Plans are underway to rebuild the pedestrian bridge that once connected the towns of Buxton and Hollis. This bridge construction initiative is winning support from both sides of the river and promises to make Salmon Falls a safer, more inviting and attractive place.
On the Buxton side, you have the very steep slopes, the cliffed slopes. It's on the Hollis side that you have some of the steep embankments, but you also have gradual slopes where people can actually get to the river. They can get to the river to, say, fish. They can get to the river to put their canoes and their kayaks in. This is an important property to protect for the following reasons. First of all, it's beautiful. When you're up on the bridge crossing the Saco and you look down, you see a natural landscape that is just stunning at all seasons. You get onto the property and it's undisturbed. It's a natural landscape with a diverse forest structure. So you've got biodiversity. My first walk told me about the history of the Indian Cellar and how American Indians that were moving up and down the river valley look to that geological kind of features because it's cool in July and back up in those rocks and it kept their their foodstuffs cool all year round. That was important. So not only you've got sort of this historical cultural piece to it.
Indian Cellar Park has it all: history, wildlife habitat, and recreational value.
This is kind of a designated fishing spot. So the Saco has a great variety of fish in it. eels and bass, and you never know what you're going to pull out. But I have actually seen salmon in here.
The natural world provides a peaceful refuge from today's hectic, hyper-connected world and a vital community gathering place. Pleasant Point Park and Indian Cellar offer visitors an escape from the stresses and pressures of 21st century life.
Why is nature important to the well-being of the individual and the community? It's the essential part of our existence, is to know what's out there. That's where our roots are, where we come from. It's been shown that some time out in nature is tremendously beneficial to productivity and state of mind. We don't spend anywhere near enough time outside doing things. For example, this is my gymnasium. This is where I see reality. We're so wrapped up in artificial existence. You've got to really understand the roots of our being and our existence.
Indian Cellar Park is shielded from any form of future development for the rest of time. But challenges remain. Many longtime Conservation Commission members are getting older, and a new generation of park stewards and visionaries must step forward to ensure that the park is preserved and protected forever. Indian Cellar is worthy of your time, energy, and ideas. Volunteer trail stewards are crucial to the ongoing success of this park. You can help build and maintain trails while educating the public about the sensitive ecological nature of the park, as well as its historic significance. With these goals in mind, the Commission hopes to erect an information kiosk at the site of this once mighty rock formation. Your involvement can help keep the park's momentum moving forward. The Hollis Conservation Commission meets at the Salmon Falls Library every first and third Monday at 5 p.m. New members are always welcome. Please do your part to help ensure the legendary Indian Cellar remains forever wild and free.
We need support, there's no question. We need more people that will come to the meetings. We have good people, but they're busy. We need some people that have a little bit of time and come and actually have ideas, want to actually do something, and have the time to do it. I have all great people on there, but they're working people. You know, they've got a tremendous amount on their plate in this world that we live in today.
200-300 years from now, when people look back on this project, or they look back on Maine's landscape in general, the world's I think, gonna be completely different. We have 330 million people today. We're on our way to 500-600 million in 50 years. What's it going to be like in a couple hundred years? I think when you look back, you're going to see pockets like the Indian Cellar project and property, and people are going to say, thank you. Thank you for making those investments then to protect places like this today.
Today decides tomorrow. Don't hesitate to get involved. Conserving our natural resources can make an entire world of difference for future generations.
In today's day and age, one of the most important things that the Trust for Public Land and our partners feel is getting people outside, getting them active, getting them to appreciate, experience the remarkable beauty the state has to offer, and they've got one of the best right in their backyard.
People that go outside they are a healthy bunch. Mentally, they're interesting. They have a lot of different perspectives on their mind. They're never bored. If somebody wants to be outdoors, they're going to love it. And even if they come here, they'll get converted.